So I think I could probably admit I have a little bit of a problem. You could say I'm kind of a sucker for Games Workshop games. 40k, Blood Bowl, Aeronautica Imperialis, Kill Team, Horus Heresy. I've well and truly gone down the rabbit hole, and then into the rabbit hole of those rabbit holes. Now I have resisted, but when some mutual friends approached me about joining their gaming group, my resolve crumbled. It's Necromunda time! Give me a best Necromunda time.
It's Necromunda time!
Why did you try and say it like that?
I don't know.
Necromunda time. That's right, I'm finally delving into the dark depths of the Underhive and the Ash Wastes beyond to create a gang of reprobates to roam the mean streets of Necromunda. I've decided to start a gang of Bad Zone enforcers, outlawed lawmen bringing their own particular brand of justice to the Bad Zone. Exactly what you have to do to get outlawed as an enforcer on Necromunda, I don't really want to think about. I wanted to theme my gang around a corrupt Wild West sheriff and his posse, doing shady dealings and shaking down hard-working, honest folk for cash. Now to get me started, my pals did me a solid and 3D printed me some cool bits to make my gang a bit unique. To start my gang, I also bought a box of Palanite Enforcers and Palanite Subjugators to give me a variety of bits to work with. Now coming from the more monopose kits that 40k has become, it's nice to see available arm options that you don't have a random bit of neck or torso attached to, as you're much freer to customize your gang. Mixing and matching between the hilarious Victorian era gas masks and cowboy hats and the very sci-fi looking enforcer bits was a lot of fun, and I managed to get some real characters out of the build. To add to this, I also took a knife to some of the parts to show deep scratches and battle damage. When I come up with a paint scheme, I start with the narrative. Where have they come from? Where do they live? Where do they spend most of their time? And so, what colours are going to best suit that environment? For today, I'll be focusing on one of my enforcers, Grint Northforest. He's the rookie of the group, given the most battered gear and thrown into the front lines, but so far he's proven himself to the rest of the gang. The gang's hideout is based out in the Red Sand Badlands, and they struggle to maintain their weapons and equipment, leading much of it to fall into disrepair. However, they have a solid militaristic training, and I wanted an army surplus vibe to their gear. So, with the narrative established, let's get to painting. I started from a black primer, over which I sprayed Vallejo Mahogany. This will help to give a dirty and worn down appearance to any colours that I put over the top, and if I do miss any areas, there's going to be that brown in the recesses. It's a dark enough colour that you won't really notice it. Now I did struggle with what the main armour colour should be, but thinking through my narrative, I reasoned they might have some standard issue khaki or army green supplies, probably fallen off the back of a supply freighter or raided from an unsuspecting Imperial Guard manufactorum. I opted for yellow olive from Vallejo, a very deep green, which I added to all the armour panels, knee pads, and helmets. I next added all the metal details with my favourite metal paints. Come on, you didn't think I was going to leave Vallejo gunmetal out of this one, did you? Next, to lean into the Wild West element, I wanted a lot of browns, a lot of leathers, so that they can look like they're walking out of a sci-fi saloon. The key challenge for me here was trying to keep interest while only using different shades of brown. These are only background details, so really don't need to be in your face, but should still have some character and contribute to the overall paint scheme. For this, I used 3 different browns for various purposes. Rhinox Hide for the main leather shirt and for more prominent areas, Mahogany for the deeper underlayers, and Mournfang Brown for any belts and straps across the model. With this colour being a lot lighter, it already helps them to stand out from the rest of the leather. Speaking of standing out, I really wanted a very bright spot colour on the chest plate, the centre of the shield, etc. I decided on a fluorescent orange to offset the green. I started by base coating these elements with Jacaro Orange. This colour by itself isn't going to be bright enough, but later on it will provide a solid base coat for my fluorescent paint. Next up was a step that I haven't done in a while, an all-over wash of Agrax Earthshade, which you can see me applying to the shield here. Now generally I've moved away from the principle of all-over washes, but for these dirty, grubby enforcers, I think it really gives the right vibe, so I decided to Agrax Earthshade over the whole model. I also went back over some parts with my olive green, mixed with Death Guard green to brighten them up just a little bit. Now I get to bring out my secret weapon. Green Stuff World Fluorescent Orange Paint. By layering this over the Jacaro Orange, I got a really vibrant orange colour. I painted the few bits of bare skin with Bugman's Glow, which I layered over with Reikland Flesh Shade, and then it was on to highlights. Starting with the armour panels, I used a mix of my olive green and Death Guard green. Death Guard olive? Probably not something you want to eat. Before then, a more prominent edge highlight of Death Guard green. For the Rhinox Hide leather, I used a 50-50 mix of Scrag Brown and Rhinox Hides. I applied this as scratchy lines rather than an edge highlight, to try to give some texture to the leather. I then did the same thing with Scrag Brown on its own on the most prominent areas like upturned folds in the leather. I added some Vallejo Light Brown to my Mournfang Brown and used this to highlight the straps and belts. With the recipes for my main colours sorted, I could now move on to details. I painted Wraithbone into the eye lenses of his helmet, which I then went over with Vallejo Red. I got very strong Fallout New Vegas energy when I did this, and my desire to say things like, "Patrolling the ash wastes is enough to make you wish for a nuclear winter," was very strong. I applied some Typhus Corrosion onto more bland parts of the shield to give them a worn-out, rusted look. As Grint North Forest gets all the hand-me-down bits of equipment, there's quite a few bits that I've kind of chipped away or snipped off in order to make it look like it's battered and really worn down, so this is where I really focused with my Typhus Corrosion. I painted the base with gunmetal and copper, which I then washed all over with Agrax Earthshades, and then I applied some more Typhus Corrosion. Remember to like and subscribe if you're enjoying so far, and let's go on to the final touches, including one that I'm really excited about, weathering pigments. To get this guy looking like he's just stepped off an iron oxide desert, I applied this Vallejo Dark Red weathering pigment around his feet, at the bottom of his shield, and to the base using an old makeup brush. I then attempted to fix it in place using Lahmian Medium and a pipette, which was not ideal. I had to wait for it to dry a little bit before I could come back in with some dry weathering pigment. I then stuck him to the base and was on to the final step, a little bit of battle damage. I applied some transfers to the chest and shield, which are included in the Enforcer's box, fixing them in place with Ardcoat Gloss Varnish. For the shield, however, I also drew lines of brown which I topped with orange to represent scratches. I also avoided these scratches when painting on the Ardcoat to show that the perfect mirror sheen has been compromised by the deep gouges left in the material. With that, Grint North Forest is ready to unscrupulously take to his first mission in the Bad Zone. Thanks for watching this episode of Hobby with Ollie. I didn't manage to paint the whole gang, but I'm hoping to get a full gang pick up when they're all done, so watch this space. Let me know what gangs you've made for Necromunda in the comments down below, and until next time, my name has been Ollie, this has been my hobby, and I'll see you next time.